In this week's 1% Weekly, we ask, is Donald Trump bad for business? We meet Elite Investor Club member Paul Watson, and I'm going to send you in search of the missing child tax fund. So what are we to make of Donald Trump from a business perspective? You'd imagine somebody with his background would be a pro-business kind of person, and it looks like perhaps if you're in America that could be the case. There's been some very generous tax cuts recently which are certainly helping to stimulate the American economy and the American stock market. But on the international stage he's got a very different agenda. It seems to me like there's almost a choreographed approach where he starts by saying something deliberately provocative. He's done this with NATO, he's done it with the EU, he's done it with Britain, and then perhaps tries to get some kind of deal that might be better in America's favor in terms of tariffs or contributions to defense budgets or whatever. I think the dilemma now is just how financially literate he turns out to be and what that all means for us here in Europe and the rest of the world. Because as you're probably well aware now, one of the things he's done recently is to impose these massive tariffs on certain imported goods. And he seems to think that international trade is a zero-sum game. One country's gain is another country's loss, and that America has been on the losing side for too long. So he's now slapping these tariffs on things like steel and aluminium. The EU is responding with tariffs on everything from orange juice to Harley-Davidson motorbikes. I can't really see anything good coming out of this. The reality is that we all benefit from the cake getting bigger, and global GDP has been growing very well for years. What's changed is that there's a structural decline in the West and a structural increase and acceleration in the East. That's why you've heard me talk about this being the century of Asia, the 20th century perhaps belonged to America, and the 19th century to Britain. So some of this is just historic and structural. Is he seriously thinking he's going to bring jobs back to the Rust Belt towns of the Midwest? Are we going to see Detroit suddenly building gazillions of cars again? I don't think so. That just isn't going to happen. All he's going to do with this is kind of distort the balance of trade. And that could have some very weird knock-on effects. It could even cause a collapse in bond prices, because one of the things that's been happening as American consumers buy Chinese goods is that China, in return for all these dollars that are coming its way, has been buying US treasuries. If they no longer do that, because they no longer have the surplus because of the trade tariffs that are reducing trade, they're going to stop buying bonds. If anything, they might even start to sell some of their bonds, and suddenly, before you know it, the yields will go up, which of course means the bond prices will go down. So it's a little bit hard to say what the full impact of these will be. If they're not very impactful at first, he may of course go further and start slapping more tariffs on, which could get us into an even faster spiral downwards. This has all been done before. If you look back into the 1920s, almost a century ago, we had a splendid isolationist president in America, and we had trade wars going on, tariffs being piled on. The net result was everybody lost. So hopefully somebody in or around Donald Trump can actually talk him through a little bit of history, educate him a bit on why this hasn't worked in the past, and maybe we can get underneath the trade tariffs as to what the real issue is. Does he just want a bigger contribution towards NATO from the European Union, for example? That's a discussion that needs to be had. What we don't want is all of our businesses being impacted by an inability to export or by having tit-for-tat trade wars going on around the world. Nobody will win from that sort of game. So please, Donald, read up on your history and let's have a slightly more creative and imaginative approach to global trade. It's always great to learn about members of Elite Investor Club, and I'm delighted to say that we're going to bring you another member's story today. We're going to meet Paul Watson, who's going to tell us a little bit about his background and then what made him decide to join Elite Investor Club. So Paul, welcome to 1% Weekly.
Thank you.
I think it would be really helpful for people to understand a little bit about your kind of personal background. You know, obviously there's a chain of events that led up to you becoming a member of Elite Investor Club. So what's the sort of 2-minute version of your life story?
So I used to be a marketing executive, worked for a number of blue chip companies, and had an expat career. My wife and I and children were outside the UK for a number of years. At the point where schooling became critical and older parents, we decided to return to the UK, and I took on some senior general management roles for different companies in the UK. At one point when we had bought a house in the UK, got planning permission to knock it down and build our dream home, I was then offered another role in the US and decided that I would take voluntary redundancy basically. That was my critical, pivotal moment to look at the career and decide, do I want another corporate job, or do we want to take sort of responsibility for our own future and look to run our own business in some shape or form? Which we did, and we started looking around. We found a property investing franchise which we joined now 4.5 years ago, and we've built a portfolio of multiple occupation co-living houses. And obviously that was the opportunity where we had a chance to meet some 18 months ago now.
That's right, yeah. I was making my first TV series with Sky called Make Your Money Work, and we were looking for examples of interesting ways in which people were achieving financial independence. And one of the things I found was this Platinum Property franchise. And I contacted Steve Bolton, the founder, and we had everything arranged. And suddenly at the last minute, he couldn't make the filming date. He said, but I know just the man for you. I've got a guy called Paul Watson, who's one of our franchisees, so I'll get him to come along. And then we met on the TV series. And I guess at that point you looked into what this Elite Investor Club was all about.
Well, really, yes, coming out of the interview and meeting you on the day and finding out a little bit about it on the day, I then did my homework, and obviously one of the benefits of having a property business is that it is not a full-time job, but I do have some time to myself, and that gave me the opportunity to look into what the Elite Group and the Elite Investor Club specifically is about. It seemed to have a resonance with what Carol and I wanted, and hence we joined, became a member, and the rest is history, as they say. Okay,
so it's always interesting to me. There's all these different ways in which people kind of stumble across us, whether it's online or be mentioned by a friend, or they see me speak at an event or something. So what were your first impressions when you started getting involved, you started receiving our content and coming to our events and things?
I resonated very much with yourself actually in your story, because in my corporate time I had a financial advisor. We had taken advice, we had put money onto the stock market in bonds, we had lost money as well, so there was a resonance there with your background, your story. I like the notion of taking responsibility for our financial future, and part of that was taking responsibility of the pension and actually making that work, not only work harder in itself, but helping us use that to further our property business. So it was very much about educating ourselves and then using that education to secure our financial future. And it seemed to be right at the core of what Elite was about. So there was if you like, a values fit straight away.
Okay, and we keep trying to find new and better ways of getting that kind of educational material out there. So obviously we do these videos, we do blog articles, we do live events, we do the magazine. What have you found has been the most effective way of helping you on your journey?
I certainly watch OPW, and you also do a number of webinars as you talk about the various different investments, so they're very informative, and the beauty of those is you can go back and repeat watch them as well. The magazine is actually in the new format. Daphne works really hard with that, and that's been fantastic actually. I think a big move forward. I think just the general communication style of Elite is informative, but not overly salesy. And that resonates with both my wife and I. You know, we don't want to be sold to. We want to be educated and informed and told, well, you know, this is available if you're of interest. And some things we do, as you know, and some things we don't. Some things don't resonate with us, some of the investments, but a lot do, and that's why we've become, you know, active members of the community.
Because one of the sort of tight ropes we have to walk is that we're not, you know, regulated financial advisors, so we can't give people advice, certainly not in the investment sphere. So we kind of focus on just giving information and letting people make their own decisions. And I guess with your own background, you're quite used to having to make your own decisions. Has that been a help to you, that because of your perhaps your corporate life and your business life? Is that partly why you think it resonates, that you're the one that wants to be in control, making those decisions rather than being told what to do by advisors?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. With any investment, you've got to take action. You've got to decide it's right for you or not, and therefore invest or not. And I suppose looking back throughout my business corporate career, it was about making decisions for the various employers that I was working for. When we were buying our house and knocking it down, that's quite a big step for many people in life, and building their own house. And so, you know, that was a goal that we set ourselves and decided to do it and achieve it. So I, as an individual, and particularly with my wife's support, you know, we are very much action takers. So I think, yes, for other members of the network, they would also say that they are probably action takers as well, to be able to benefit from the various investments that are on offer.
Yeah, I mean, my impression is that we seem to resonate most with either successful business owners or serious property investors. Now, you've met a few of them now. You've been to some of our boardroom breakfasts. You've been to some of our bigger events. You know, how have you found those events, first of all, and what's it been like from a kind of a networking and meeting other people point of view?
It's been great. You have a nice blend of people in the community, I would say. You've got people who are running their own businesses. There are people who still have corporate roles but have built up a significant wealth behind them. And you've got people who are retired. I remember having a lovely conversation with Paul Avin's father, having dinner next to him at one of the events. And so, you know, there is a very nice blend of people in the network with all kinds of experiences. It's really nice to talk to people, particularly when you're at the start of the journey with the club, to talk to other people who have invested, and knowing that actually it's a safe community, and that when you make an investment, you are not only going to get the ROI, but you're going to get the return of your investment. You know, that's capital coming back as well. So that's reassuring. I think also every opportunity for networking is a learning one. You know, picking up hints and tips for people who are either running businesses or have made other investments. What is it that they look for in due diligence and things like that? So you've actually got a very sharing community here. Yeah. Whether it was by design or not, I don't know, but you have.
No, I think it just seems to happen by osmosis, to be honest. And yeah, I got somebody came up to me the other day at one of our events and gave me this gift, and I said, "Well, what's that for?" "Oh, well, actually, I met somebody at one of your events, and they've now become a major client of mine." You know? So, yeah, so you just never know what's going to happen. I guess you put a bunch of entrepreneurs, business owners, investors in the same room, you know, magic seems to happen. So that's been your experience too, has it?
Absolutely, so far. You know, it's not competitive because everybody's on their own investment journey. They all have their own strategies for what they like to invest in and the levels of investment that they want to make. So it's not competitive at all. It's just one of sharing information, sharing experiences, and I think that's all to the benefit and to the credit of yourself and the staff here at Elite.
Okay, because I think the other thing I sort of kind of say to the team who, you know, when you're doing it every day, I guess you start to take it a little bit for granted, but I'm not aware of many other organizations out there that are like the Investor Club. I mean, have you come across anything else like this?
No, I mean there are other investment brokerages out there who, once you get on their mailing list via whatever route, you are bombarded with emails and phone calls, and this comes back to one of the points I made earlier, that I find that Elite is not hard-nosed, sales-driven, and that resonated with me. That was the same with our property franchise, and it's to some extent it's the same of how I like to to lead my life. Other organisations are different and their culture is different. So I think Elite is quite unique. And the other thing, the other organisations probably don't offer the breadth of services. You know, we'll probably talk about the pensions and the tax side of things a little later, but I'm not aware of them offering those. Okay,
so finally, Paul, if somebody was thinking about joining Elite Investor Club, what would your sort of suggestion and thoughts be for them?
I would suggest, initially start with the website, because that gives you a lot of information about what the club is about. It talks about some of the events that are coming up, and so first of all, sign up. That means you'll start to get some of the materials. It's obviously free to join up, so you'll get the emails and the newsletters. Dip the toe in the water, come along to some events, talk to some of the existing members, because that will start to build your knowledge about the organisation even more. You'll start to pick up some of the education that you provide at the events, and it'll build up that trust in the organisation before you want to make your first investment. I'm sure, like me, other members have started with their first investment being quite small and then gradually built up as their level of trust has also grown.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think our record in either direction is somebody is invested within a week of meeting us,
right,
and at the other end of the spectrum, somebody is invested 3.5 years after meeting us. So there's clearly there is a range as to when people feel comfortable. So no, that's absolutely true. But that's great information. Thanks very much, Paul, for this week.
Thank you.
So as you can see, a very interesting backstory from Paul Watson, and now he seems to have really found a home here in Elite Investor Club. And if any of that resonates with you, you can join the club just by clicking on the link in the description below this video, and then it'll take you about 2 minutes to fill in a form, and you too can become a member of Elite Investor Club. I have some potentially good news for you on the tax front if you're the parent of children. It seems that up to 1 million child tax funds have gone astray. That is, the documents that are being sent out are coming back addressee gone away. So people have moved on and completely forgotten that they had a child tax fund in place. Now, some of these could have up to £1,000 of tax-free savings in them, and they were set up between 2002 and 2011 with contributions from the government of up to £250. But I guess they were relatively small accounts, and in the scheme of things didn't get the attention of the parents too much. But now it seems that literally 1 million of these things are floating around in the ether, and we can't contact the parents, say the government. So you might be sitting on £1,000 you didn't think you had, so you can check whether one of these missing child tax funds belongs to you by going to this website, gov.uk/child-trust-funds, plural. So maybe you've got £1,000 or £2,000 if you have 2 children that you didn't know about or you forgot about. You've moved house recently and that money is sitting somewhere accumulating tax-free income for your child. In total, because about 1 in 6 of these things has apparently gone astray like this, there could be as much as £1 billion gone astray. So have a look around the paperwork, see whether you have got a child tax fund dating from either 2002 or all the way through to 2011, and you could be in for some unexpected windfall money. Thanks for watching 1% Weekly. If you like what you see, why not subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to click the bell so you get notified every time we broadcast a new program. Or if you just want to watch another video, how about this one? Are you going to make a choice then? Because I can't sort of stay here all day. I'm getting my hands are getting tired. So in your own time,